I was born in darkness, forged in fire. The acrid smoke is all I've ever known. They say there was once a world beyond these brass walls and steel corridors, but such tales are for fools and dreamers. Here, there is only the endless grind of gears, the hiss of pistons, and the screams of the dying. My designation is Servitor X-219. Once, perhaps, I had a name. Now I am merely a cog in the great machine, my flesh fused with metal, my mind a flickering ember of what it once was. But unlike the others, I remember. I remember what it was to be human. The overseers crack their whips, driving us onward. We toil in the bowels of the forge, chained to massive cogwheels that turn ceaselessly, powering the dark machinations of our masters. The air is thick with the stench of oil and burning flesh. Beside me, a mutant collapses, its misshapen body giving out under the strain. Without hesitation, I reach down and snap its neck. A mercy in this place of endless torment. The gears never stop. The forge must be fed. Magos Vex peered through his augmetic eye at the writhing mass of flesh before him. Once, it had been a man. Now it was a symphony of pain, a canvas upon which Vex painted his twisted visions. "Fascinating," he murmured, adjusting a dial on the control panel. The creature's screams rose in pitch, then abruptly ceased as its vocal cords ruptured. Vex made a note in his data slate. Progress at last. He had been an apprentice to Magos Onuris himself once, but the eternal war with Forge Castir held no interest for Vex. His pursuits were loftier, his ambitions grander. The warp beckoned, promising power beyond measure. Vex had long since discarded the outmoded beliefs of the Mechanicus. Here, in the embrace of chaos, true knowledge awaited. If only he could pierce the veil. A chime sounded, alerting him to an incoming transmission. With a thought, Vex activated the hololith. The flickering image of Magos Onuris appeared, his mechanical tendrils writhing in agitation. "Vex," the Master of Pollux growled, "I require results. The Exospectre's forces advance. We need an edge." Vex bowed his head in deference, even as his augmetic fingers twitched in irritation. "My lord, I am on the cusp of a breakthrough. With more time." "Time is a luxury we no longer possess," Onuris interrupted. "Succeed, or join the pain gardens yourself." The transmission cut off abruptly. Vex turned back to his experiment, his mind racing. The creature on the slab twitched, and Vex smiled. There was work to be done. Servitor X-219 trudged through the river of molten steel, each step sending shockwaves of agony through its augmented body. The heat was unbearable, even for one such as it. But the forge flow must be maintained, lest the great engines falter. As it waded through the scorching metal, X-219's damaged mind drifted. Fragments of memory surfaced, tantalizing glimpses of a life long lost. A face kind and gentle, a name spoken with love. But such thoughts were dangerous. The overseer's neural whips could detect the slightest hint of independent thought. A disturbance in the flow caught his attention. Something dark and massive stirred beneath the surface. For a moment, a single baleful eye the size of a battle tank breached the molten river, regarding X-219 with alien intelligence. Then it was gone, leaving only ripples in its wake. X-219 knew better than to report such things. The secrets of Pollux were not for the likes of him to question. He pressed on, ignoring the smoldering pain in his limbs. The forge must be fed. In the distance, the sounds of battle echoed. The war with Castia raged on, as it had for centuries. But for X-219 and his fellow servitors, there was only the endless toil. No rest. Only the grinding of gears and the flow of molten steel. As X-219 reached the far shore, his leg actuators finally gave out. He collapsed onto the scorched metal grating, smoke rising from charred flesh. The overseers would come soon to salvage what they could and discard the rest. In his last moments of consciousness, X-219 allowed himself to remember a name, his name. "Marcus," he whispered as darkness claimed him. The forge must be fed. In the dying gasps of the 30th millennium, as the age of strife wheezed its last, the Emperor of Mankind saw his chance to hammer humanity into one misshapen lump. All thanks to some warp-born abomination called Slaanesh, tearing its way into being and ripping open the galaxy's veins. Our man, the Emperor, he starts small. Terror. That's Earth to you unwashed masses. He cooks up some super soldiers, proto-space marines if you will, and uses them to knock heads together during the unification wars. Once he's got Earth under his thumb, he looks up and thinks, why stop here? This self-proclaimed savior needed weapons, and plenty of them. So he turned his covetous eyes to Mars, that red orb of rust and secrets. The tech priests there, a congregation of iron-loving zealots if ever there were, saw in him a kindred spirit. When he appeared atop Olympus Mons, you'd think the machine god himself had descended for oil and prayers. In the year 739 of the 30th millennium, they shake hands over the Treaty of Mars. The Emperor gets his toys and ships, and the tech priests get to keep tinkering and worshipping their nuts and bolts. So this Emperor of Mankind is preaching his imperial truth like salvation. No gods, no magic, just cold, hard reality. Yet he lets the Mechanicus keep their robo-religion. Bit of a hypocrite, our golden boy. When the Emperor strutted onto Mars, most of the Rust Dwellers fell over themselves, thinking he's their machine god made flesh. The Omnissiah, they call him. Might as well have called him the Omni-shite for all the good it did him. A handful of tech priests, sharper than their fellows, saw through the golden veneer. To them, the Emperor wasn't some divine savior, but a smooth-talking charlatan who'd sweet-talk the Martian priesthood into chains. This bitter seed, planted in the red soil, would fester for 2 centuries before bursting into a bloody bloom of rebellion. For 200 years, these doubters kept their traps shut. But anger's like a boil. Sooner or later, it's gonna burst. And when it does, it's gonna be messy. See, these skeptics, they had it all figured out. The Emperor wasn't offering an alliance. He was serving up an ultimatum with a side of, fuck you. Join me, or I'll take what I want anyway. Some choice, eh? To these cynics, Mars had lost more than it gained. The red planet, once standing toe-to-toe with Terra in the race for humanity's crown, was now just another bauble on the Emperor's chain. That peace treaty, nothing but pretty words masking an ugly truth. Mars was no longer its own master. 2 centuries after the Emperor's grand bargain, up steps Kelbor Hal, a bloke so smart he'd outsmarted his own humanity. Fabricator General, they called him. Master of Olympus Mons. A man more machine than flesh. Later, Imperial quill pushers would weep over Kelbor Hal's rise, calling it a tragedy. A genius, they'd say, but one who'd sell his soul, or what was left of it, to the highest bidder. Under this tin pot dictator, Mars was humming, and the Mechanicum flourished. Lost tech found, production quotas shattered, but with each triumph, a piece of the man was scraped away, replaced by cold metal and colder logic. Pride? Ambition? Just ghosts in a machine of flesh and steel. Mars in those days was a powder keg waiting for a spark. The Magi, those would-be kings of the red dust, played their games of secrets and lies. Forged cities, islands of power in a sea of rust, turned on each other like starving dogs fighting over scraps. Whispers said the Titan legions, you know, the walking mountains of death and firepower, were picking sides, and not openly. Oh no. Loyalty, it seemed, was as scarce on Mars as water. As the galaxy teetered on the brink of madness, Horus sent his lapdog Regulus to Mars. The mission? To whisper into the ear of Kelbor Hal, the half-man, half-toaster who runs the show on the Red Planet. Kelbor Hal, no stranger to false promises, met Horus's offer with a sneer. The stink of the Emperor's visit 2 centuries past still clung to his forge like a bad oil leak. Equality. Brotherhood. Just pretty lies to mask the taste of subjugation. The Mechanicum had bled for the Emperor's dreams, churning out endless streams of death and destruction. And what did they get in return? A pat on the head and a good job well done. It was enough to make even a metal heart burn with rage. Now here was Horus Lupercal, the golden boy turned rebel, offering... what exactly? Kelbor Hal may have replaced most of his flesh with iron, but he wasn't born yesterday. He wanted more than just words. He wanted power. And that's when Regulus, that silver-tongued snake, starts yapping about new players in the game, shadow powers offering their support to those with the balls to grab it. Horus, he says, has already shaken hands with these dark forces. It's a pivotal moment, like watching a man deciding whether to jump off a cliff or not. On one side, the Imperium that's been using the Mechanicum like a cheap whore. On the other, Horus and his mysterious new friends offering... well, who the fuck knows what they're offering, but it's gotta be better than this, right? Horus knew that whoever held the Red Planet's leash controlled the guns that'd decide this war. So he dangled a poisoned friendship before Kelbor Hal, asking only for loyalty in return. Oh, and to crush any pesky loyalists underfoot, of course. Now, Kelbor Hal, he's no fool. He's been playing favorites with Horus for years, feeding him the best toys while other fleets got the scraps. But trading one tyrant for another, that's a mug's game, and Kelbor Hal ain't no mug. So Regulus, he starts laying it on thick. We'll make Mars great again, he says. We'll kick those flesh bags off your forge worlds. And then he dangles the real bait. Lost STC tech, ripped from the cold, dead hands of the Oretian technocracy. But old Kelbor Hal, he's greedy. He wants more. That's when Regulus pulls out the big guns. How about we let you play with the forbidden toys, he says. AI, warp tech, all that juicy stuff the Emperor said you couldn't touch. And to prove it ain't just talk, Horus hands over the keys to the vaults of Moravec. It's like Christmas for tech heads. If Christmas was full of chaos-tainted relics and murderous machine intelligences. Kelbor Hal's eyes light up like a kid in a candy store. All that knowledge, all that power, right at his fingertips. And just like that, he's sold. Mars, humanity's greatest forge world, falls into Horus's lap like a ripe fruit. So, Kelbor Hal cracks open the vaults of Moravec, and what spills out? Not gold, not weapons, but something far worse. Corruption, pure, undiluted chaos in digital form. This Scrapcode, right? It's not just some virus. It's like someone took madness, gave it teeth, and taught it to fuck machines. Loggy stacks start spewing gibberish like a drunk oracle. Cogitators go mad, probably wondering why they were ever born. Mars, that forge of humanity's might, turns into a carnival of the damned. Picture it. Servitors pirouetting through pools of molten metal. Titan war machines playing hopscotch with forged cities. Tech priests speaking in binary tongues, trying to exorcise demons from toasters. The whole planet turns into one big bloody mess. They call it the Schism of Mars, but that's like calling a decapitation a slight headache. Kelbor Hal had a gift for Horus, a ship to make the stars tremble. The furious abyss, built in the shadow of Jupiter, this monster could shrug off planetary defenses like a dog shakes off water. Now, old Kelbor Hal, he's not just doing this out of the goodness of his steel heart. No, he's got dreams, big dreams, wants to become one with the machine god, whatever the hell that means. The Emperor said no, but Horus says sure, why not? And throws in some warp-flavored candy to sweeten the deal. So they build this monster of a ship, orbiting Jupiter. It's for the word-bearers, those book-thumping lunatics. Their mission? Simple. Just pop over to Ultramar and wipe out an entire legion of space marines. You know, a milk run. When the ship's done, Kelbor Hal doesn't throw a party. No, this paranoid bastard decides the best way to keep a secret is to kill everyone who knows it. So he blows the whole shipyard to kingdom come. Workers, tech priests, irreplaceable technology. All of it gone in a flash of fire and vacuum. In the twisted saga of the Horus heresy, it was the Dark Mechanicum that bled shadow into the flickering flame of rebellion, casting their lot with the traitor forces. This faction comprised of segments of its Martian priesthood, the Ordo Reductors warsmiths, the cold machinists of the Legio Cybernetica, and the Myrmidon Destructor cults, all rallied under the iron fist of Kelbor Hal. Half the Titan legions decided to join, along with a bunch of night houses. Mars, that red forge of war, became a battleground of divided loyalties. But other forge worlds like Sarum and Voss decided to throw their lot in with the winning team. Some, like Ryza, couldn't make up their minds and decided to have a little civil war of their own. Horus promised these traitor worlds the moon on a stick. Autonomy, he said. Empire, he whispered. Freedom to tinker with all the shiny toys you want, he purred. These dark promises swayed the hearts of many a Forge World synod, tempting them into pacts of blood and oil. The leaders of these Forge Worlds played both sides like fiddles, shaking hands with the Emperor's lackeys while kissing Horus's ass behind closed doors. They wanted it all, greedy bastards that they were. When the war's tides turned ghastly at Istvan V, it was the Dark Mechanicum who unleashed their pent-up horrors. Employing forbidden lore, they crafted nightmares of steel and sorcery to shatter the loyalist space marines. This birthed the Schism of Mars, sundering the Mechanicum in two. But all good things must come to an end, and when Horus got his ass handed to him at Terra, the party was over. These tech heretics ran with their tails between their legs to the Eye of Terror, while the loyal dogs of the Mechanicum picked up the pieces. In the end, this whole mess changed the face of the Imperium. The balance of power shifted, alliances crumbled, and a new age of distrust and paranoia was born. In the shadows of a forsaken realm, where reality bends and sanity frays, the Dark Mechanicum toils, their souls sold to the caprice of chaos. Once proud servants of the machine god and brethren to the cult Mechanicus, these heretics now kneel before darker masters. Their mechadendrites writhe in unholy ecstasy as they commune with entities beyond mortal comprehension. These fallen priests dwell in the nightmarish expanse of the Eye of Terror. There, amidst the screaming winds of madness, they tend to monstrous war machines. Titans that walk on legs of corrupted metal, their spirits replaced by demons of the warp. Tanks that bleed and howl as they crush the bones of the faithful beneath their tracks. Knowledge is their obsession, their drug, their damnation. They seek it not in the cold logic of circuits and steel, but in the whispered promises of gods who revel in destruction. The Omnissiah they worship is not the Emperor's puppet, but a facet of chaos itself, unpredictable, all-consuming, eternal. In laboratories that would drive lesser minds insane, they delve into lore so forbidden it burns the eyes to behold. Their goal? To tear down the false emperor, to show their blinded brothers the true path to enlightenment through oblivion. Meanwhile, in Forge worlds bathed in the emperor's light, the loyal tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus spit upon the very mention of their fallen brethren. Yet, in the darkest corners of their binary minds, a seed of curiosity takes root. What secrets have the heretics uncovered? What power could drive them to such madness? In the dance of betrayal and retribution, the Adeptus Mechanicus seethes with a hatred as hot as a fusion core. Their former brothers, now twisted into the abomination known as the Dark Mechanicum, left Mars soaked in blood and ashes. This treachery left a wound on the soul of the Omnissiah's priesthood that festers to this day. When Horus fell, shattered and disgraced, his lapdogs scattered like rats. The Dark Mechanicum slithered into the cracks of the galaxy. They found homes in the fetid embrace of traitor legions or in the dark spaces between stars where even the Emperor's light fears to tread. The Dark Mechanicum has since been the architect of nightmares. They twist metal and flesh into unspeakable weapons. The Emperor's children shrieking psychosonic armaments, Fabius Bile's grotesque genetic monstrosities, and the techno-viral scourge that spawns the obliterators. From the hellish forge worlds within the Eye of Terror, ruled by overlords more machine than demon, they forge chains of damnation, fueling the endless tide of the Black Crusades. They were among the first to wear the brand of heretic like a badge of honor, fleeing to the Eye not out of fear, but hunger. Hunger for knowledge unbound by the chains of imperial doctrine. But the Eye wasn't the only abyss willing to swallow them. Like cancer, they spread to realms untouched by the light of the Astronomicon. The spaces where its light doesn't reach, dubbed the Outlands, the wilderness space, and the grim voids of the halo stars, harbor worlds and civilizations that have never trembled under the imperial creed. These are places where the name of the Emperor whispers like a ghost, if at all. On the ragged edges of this sprawling empire lies the Calixis sector, a bastion teetering on the brink of the known and the unknowable. It stares out into the abyss of the Coronis expanse, a treacherous swath of the halo stars, linked to Calixis by nothing more stable than a capricious warp route. Beyond this perilous passage, unseen societies, both human and Xenos, flourish in obscurity. The surrounding voids, like the Hazaroth Abyss and the Drusus Marches, stretch out like fingers into the darkness, touching other isolated realms such as the nomad spaces that drift between Calixis and the Ixaniad sector. But it's in these shadows that the most interesting vermin thrive. These heretics are not a monolith, but a motley assembly of exiles and outcasts. They cluster into extended kinships, hoarding esoteric knowledge and guarding secrets of ancient tech and the twisted paths of local warp space. Such expertise makes them invaluable and dangerously independent. The Adeptus Mechanicus watches these clans with a mix of fear and fury, particularly the infamous Meritech clans. They're the boogeyman that keeps the priesthood up at night. These heretics know things, ancient, terrible things, that would make a tech priest's circuits fry with envy. Some brave souls, or fools, depending on your view, dare to infiltrate Imperial space. They practice their forbidden arts under the very noses of their enemies. But the price of discovery is steep. The Inquisition doesn't waste time on trials for tech heretics. It's straight to the torture chambers, where your screams become hymns to their cruel god. You think you know what hell looks like? Think again. There are places out there that'd make your nightmares piss themselves. These demon worlds, ruled by the whims of the ruinous powers, is where sanity goes to die, and reason is a long-forgotten joke. Here, demons dance on the corpses of natural law, drunk on the sorcery that bleeds from every pore of these twisted realms. Mortals, they're less than ants here. Meat puppets to be molded into champions or ground into paste for the amusement of their masters. But for some, the truly desperate or the monumentally stupid, these hellscapes offer a perverse kind of freedom. Even the Inquisition's tendrils can't reach into these pockets of madness. Small comfort when you're surrounded by beings that see your suffering as their favorite form of entertainment. Now, picture this horror and crank it up to 11. That's what you get when the Dark Mechanicum sinks its oil-stained claws into a demon world. These hellforges are where machine meets madness, where the line between flesh and steel isn't just blurred, it's laughing hysterically as it burns. Imagine forges the size of continents, where the screams of the damned provide the rhythm for the ceaseless pounding of demonic hammers. Mills that don't just grind grain, but souls, and overseeing it all, creatures that were once men, now more machine than flesh, their minds so twisted they make the average heretic look sane by comparison. These aren't just factories. They're monuments to spite, churning out weapons for a war that's lasted longer than most species have existed. The Traitor Legion's temper tantrum against Daddy Emperor has been going on for 10,000 years, and these Hellforgers keep the party supplied with all the toys they need. To the Imperium, these places are a festering boil on the ass of the galaxy, a constant reminder that no matter how many worlds they crush under their boot, no matter how many heretics they burn, chaos is always there, laughing, waiting. The masters of these nightmares, they're not men anymore, not even machines. They're something other. Demons wrapped in steel, logic circuits fused with madness, They bow to no one, not the corpse emperor, not even the chaos gods themselves. They peddle their unholy wares to anyone with the balls to pay their price. And that price? Souls, flesh, the raw stuff of life to feed their ever-hungry forges. Look up if you dare. The sky's a roiling mass of toxins. Smokestacks pierce the clouds like the fingers of buried giants, vomiting more poison into the air. Below, there is no below, just layer upon layer of factories, a cancer of industry metastasized across an entire world. You might see figures moving through this metal hell. Don't be fooled. They're not human, not anymore. Robes hide bodies more machine than flesh, with wriggling mechadendrites where arms should be. Their skin, what's left of it, is branded with symbols that would drive a sane man mad. The old Cog Mechanicum, a joke. Now it's all leering skull faces ringed with razor teeth. The smell. Oh, the smell! It's not just burning metal and oil. It's charred flesh, boiling blood, the stench of souls being rendered down for fuel. This is what happens when you feed a forge world a diet of pure chaos for 10,000 years. And the layout? Forget logic. Forget reason. These cities grow like tumors, stretching up to claw at the poisoned sky or burrowing deep into the planet's guts. There's no plan here, just the fever dreams of the dark magi made manifest in steel and suffering. Unity. Order? These concepts are as alien to the Dark Mechanicum as mercy is to the void. They're a writhing mass of conflicting ideologies, each heretic a universe unto himself. Some spit on the very idea of the Omnissiah, others see him as just another mask worn by the ruinous powers. And then there are those who've abandoned faith entirely, their souls replaced by an unquenchable thirst for knowledge. But, oh, the things they know, the secrets they've unlocked. While their former brothers in the Adeptus Mechanicus cower behind walls of tradition, the Dark Mechanicum dances in the fires of heresy. They tear into Xenos tech with the fervor of starving men at a feast. Archaeotech from humanity's golden age. They treat it like a lover, caressing its secrets from cold, unyielding metal. And the warp? They dive into that screaming hellscape with eyes wide open, their laughter echoing in dimensions that would shatter lesser minds to gibbering fragments. But their greatest sin, the one that would make their former masters soil their robes in horror, is this. They create. They innovate. They take the forbidden scraps of 1,000,000 dead civilizations and birth monstrosities that should never have seen the light of day. Knowledge, to these damned souls, isn't some precious treasure to be hoarded. It's a weapon, a plague to be spread to any fool brave or stupid enough to listen. They experiment ceaselessly, pushing into realms of science that the Mechanicus sealed away for good fucking reason. Picture a forge world where the sky weeps acid and the ground writhes with cancerous life. Towers of twisted metal claw at a heaven that turned its back eons ago. In the shadows of these monstrous spires, things move. You might call them men, if you'd never seen a man before. More machine than flesh, more nightmare than machine. These fallen priests of technology, these bastard children of progress, they don't just tinker with machines. No, they birth abominations, weapons that could crack planets, plagues that could unmake reality itself. And as they forge these horrors, they remake themselves. Flesh gives way to steel, bone to wire, until there's precious little left of what they once were. But don't think for a moment that they've lost their appetite for Chaos's gifts. Oh no, their metal bodies writhe with mutations, and power, they wield it like a drunk swings a broken bottle. All fury and no finesse, but fucking deadly all the same. You might think in your naive imperial way that these tech heretics form some grand, galaxy-spanning brotherhood. You'd be wrong. Very wrong. There's no unity here, no grand purpose beyond the pursuit of knowledge. Instead, picture 1,000 dark kingdoms, each ruled by a tyrant, more machine than man, more god than machine. They war amongst themselves, these fallen Magi, their conflicts as bitter and bloody as any fought in the name of the corpse emperor. Some huddle in isolation, others spread their corruption like a plague, tainting everything they touch. These bastards reach into the screaming maw of the warp itself. They bind demons to their creations like a child tying a dog's leash, oblivious to the teeth that will eventually tear out their throat. And their ambitions stretch beyond the stars, artificial minds that could outsmart gods, memories ripped from cooling corpses and stuffed into metal skulls, souls, yes, fucking souls, trapped in clockwork cages, their screams providing the melody for the heretic's endless dance of innovation. To these madmen, every new idea is a victory, every scrap of forbidden lore a treasure beyond price. It doesn't matter if their creations work, if they bring ruin or salvation. The knowing is all that matters, the endless hunger for more, always more. This appetite drives them to sup with demons, to barter with Xenos that would sooner flay them alive. They'll raid imperial vaults, massacring thousands for a single dusty tome that might hold the key to some long-lost technology. And as they pursue their grand obsession, they change. They become one with their creations, monstrous amalgams of man and machine. It's rare for these twisted souls to ascend to demonhood. After all, what's left to corrupt when you've already sold every scrap of your humanity on the altar of progress? But those few who do achieve this dark apotheosis, they spread across the galaxy like a plague, their tainted technologies seeping into every corner of the Imperium. A cancer at the heart of order, a whisper of chaos in every machine spirit. In the end, who can say which is the greater threat? The monolithic orthodoxy of the Adeptus Mechanicus, or these scattered seeds of technological heresy? In a universe as fucked as ours, maybe the only difference is who gets to write the history books.